Hello, I'm Jason Kachuk. I'm going to talk about aquatic invasive species management and the public support. So, brief overview of effects invasive species can have. Habitat destruction, filling niches of specific native populations of fish or crayfish. Um, Health risks, that's a big component of a lot of damage they can do. The picture right here is of a round goby, which has been linked to botulism. There's a big die-off in Chicago a few years ago from avian botulism, which was species that were actually feeding on the invasive round goby. They get it from zebra mussels, which are also another invasive species, and it just continues to spread throughout the system. Economical impacts are the biggest one that we deal with in the Great Lakes. Uh, we have a lot of commercial fisheries out there for a wide variety of species, and if invasive species come in and push out all of those native species, then it's going to be a big hit on certain agencies, companies. A lot of economic impacts can be hurt by that. Alright, so invasive species and the public perception. The silver carp and big head carp, most visible known invasive species that we have in the aquatic invasive species world. As you can see, the picture right there is from the Wilmington crew out of Illinois, based near just south of Chicago. They do a lot of Asian carp work. They deal with this type of jumping all the time, so everybody knows about the silver carp. They don't know a lot about what you can do with them. Obviously, they pose a threat and they don't want them in the Great Lakes, but some people fail to realize why. And that is just based on the amount of food that they eat, and they take up habitat. And crazy stat is the Illinois River's biomass is like 75% Asian carp now, or silver and bighead carp. Lumping invasive species into one group is another public perception. As I said, Asian carp, that's actually four species. That's silver, bighead, grass carp, and then the black carp, which not a lot of people know about. We're still trying to research more on them. But lumping them all into one group isn't exactly the best way of going about it. People get confused with them. You'll hear media stories just say Asian carp, and talking about Asian carp in the Great Lakes, which there are no silver and bighead in the Great Lakes. There is grass carp and specific bodies of water in the Great Lakes. So it becomes a PR nightmare at times, and the public perception is that they're all the same species, even though they're different. Another one is the red swamp crayfish are good to eat. While that may be true, they are great to eat, but that's down south, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, in their native range. They have been introduced into Sandusky Bay and rivers in Ohio of Lake Erie, doing damage to habitat and just destroying what could be good habitat for native crayfish, and that's caused a lot of problem. But the main thing is they're good to eat, so people think they're great to have. Now, the biggest misconception that we have is common carp are native species. They're not native species. They were introduced a long time ago. While yes, we can kind of associate them as a native species now, they're still not. They still do bad to certain environments depending on how many you have in a certain area. But the public just sees it as another fish that they grew up seeing their entire life, and this has led to problems in certain areas. People get used to a certain fish being there, and they think it's supposed to be there, and they just run with it. So, changing perception. Outreach events are going to be a very big way for us to get the word out on invasive species, spread the word, and try to educate properly along those lines. But there's no outreach events, at least in the southeast Michigan, where I currently am located, that focus on invasive species only. Usually it's one little booth. Then doesn't do any good. Everyone comes to see the lake sturgeon because it's a big program. They do great work. Totally different program, totally another set of issues. but just showing the lake sturgeon, you can see in the picture they look cute, so everyone flocks to them to see them, and just because they get big and people love the big fish. Social media presence. We have a great Facebook page for the Alpena Fish and Wildlife Conservation Office. Green Bay Fisheries Office has one as well. That's really good. Posting a lot of good stories, updates on the office, and just looking at the amount of views you get per post. You post something about invasive species, you don't get that many views. No one really seems to care. But if you post a picture of a lake sturgeon or another big native fish, everyone loves it and makes comments, and you get more viewership out of that. So we need to change our social media presence to enhance more with invasive species. Maybe find ways to get the word out more, bring more to it. You know, that's just all we can do. Education directly to schools is important, especially for um, schools who are near like a Great Lakes or a very good river like out west with salmon, just to educate the damages that the invasive species can, and also with it being schools, you can do it at any level. You can get kids into science. I mean, everyone loves getting outdoors and seeing different stuff. So I mean, if you do a little field trip even to a river or lake, something to have displays of like actual fish swimming. I mean, they take more out of that, so that would be important. And then local news stories, that's another way to change perception. People still read news, watch the news, get the word out. Have a little documentary piece on that. It could be just a little short 5 minute clip, or even a little bit like a little quick interview. And I think that can do a lot to enhance the stuff we teach everyone in the community. Some concluding remarks is the invasive species word out there is pretty bare. We just have major species like the silver carp, where people know about that, but they fail to think about the other invasive species like the tench, the roach, and all these other random crazy ones that come over from overseas that could be in our waters, and we'll never find out until it's too late. And that's part of it. We need public support to get behind different agencies doing the research, and for them to understand the importance of it. And this would help, curb the issues of economics and health benefits. So we gotta all work together and hope it all works out. And thank you for listening to my presentation.